you believe that the dead keep secrets? That the stories they didn't tell in life remain echoing among the tombstones, waiting for someone brave enough to listen? For most, a cemetery is a place of endings. But for one man, it was about to become a beginning. A beginning so shocking it would rewrite every memory he thought he had. This is a story about silent grief, a buried secret, and a truth that refused to stay dead. If you think you know the people you love, prepare yourself. What this man is about to discover will make you question everything. Stay with me until the end, because the final revelation is something no one could have predicted. There was something wrong that morning. José Rizal Reyes, or just Rizal, as he preferred to be called, felt it as soon as he passed through the imposing gates of the Manila North Cemetery. The wind, heavy with the humidity of Manila Bay, blew colder than usual for that time of year. The old acacia trees seemed to lean over the graves, their branches like skeletal fingers guarding century-old secrets. He walked with firm steps, his dark linen barong and fine trousers a stark contrast to the melancholy of the place. His hands were tucked into his pockets, a gesture he used to maintain composure against the cold, the weather, and the pain that never left him. Routine was his armor. It was always the same. Arrive, stop before the white marble headstone, light a candle, and leave without a single word. Tala had been gone for 5 years. 5 years since her laughter fell silent and Rizal's world lost its color. Since then, he had turned grief into a precise, emotionless ritual. He didn't cry. He didn't talk about her. He didn't allow anyone, not even his own family, to mention her name. He just carried out that annual visit like a man bearing an eternal debt, but who lacks the courage to look his creditor in the eye. On that day, however, something broke the routine. An anomaly in the perfect pattern of his pain. Even before reaching Tala's grave, he saw it. There was a small figure huddled on the cold marble. A boy lying on his wife's tombstone. Rizal stopped. His heart, that rusty machine in his chest, gave a painful jolt, but his face remained an impassive mask, sculpted by years of control. He observed the frail body, covered by a dirty, tattered blanket, the bare, earth-stained feet, the shoulders trembling with the rhythm of the wind. And then he saw what the boy was clutching with desperate strength against his chest. A photograph, crumpled, faded by humidity but unmistakable. Tala. She was smiling in the picture, a genuine smile he had rarely seen in the last years of their marriage. She was kneeling on the grass, her arms wrapped around the very same boy who now slept on her grave. For an instant, Rizal's world spun. Time seemed to fold in on itself. His gaze shifted, disbelieving, between the photograph in the boy's hand and the name engraved on the stone. Tala Bonifacio Reyes, beloved wife. The same woman, the same grave, and a presence that made no sense at all. He approached in silence, but the sound of his expensive shoes crushing the damp gravel was enough. The boy slowly opened his eyes. Dark, deep eyes that carried the weight of a world Rizal didn't know. There was no sparkle, no fear, no hope, just a weary emptiness. Rizal cautiously knelt. "You must have the wrong grave, kid," he said, his voice controlled, but with a rough edge he couldn't hide. The boy didn't answer. He just clutched the photograph tighter and whispered in a hoarse, almost inaudible Tagalog, "Pasensya na, inay." "I'm sorry, Mom." Time stopped. The wind ceased. The distant murmur of Manila traffic seemed to fall silent. "Inay, Mom." Rizal frowned, a vein throbbing at his temple. "What did you say?" The boy looked away, biting his chapped lips. "Patawad po, Inay. Hindi ko sinasadyang matulog dito." "Forgive me, Mom. I didn't mean to sleep here." Rizal felt the ground give way beneath him. This was a nightmare, a delusion. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice harsher now. "Lito," the boy answered almost in a whisper. Rizal reached for the photograph. The boy hesitated, his dark eyes pleading. But the authority in Rizal's voice was absolute. Lito reluctantly released the picture. And there, looking at that photograph for the first time, Rizal felt the air leave his lungs. It was Tala without a doubt. Her hair, her smile, the small scar above her eyebrow. And the boy beside her was the same one now before him, shivering from the cold. "Where did you get this photo?" he asked, his voice filled with an urgency that startled him. "She gave it to me, Po." The words hit Rizal like a punch. Tala was dead, buried in this very spot for 5 years. How could this boy, Lito, have known her? How could he say she visited him? "Was she your mother?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Lito nodded his head. "Pumupunta siya sa bahay ampunan. She used to visit me at the orphanage." Rizal's mind began to spin, a storm of denial and confusion. An orphanage. Tala never in all their years of marriage had she mentioned it. Never spoken of visits, of adoption, of children. And even if she had, would he have listened? The boy shivered, his hands purple from the cold, his lips chapped. On instinct, Rizal took off his coat and wrapped it around the small body before him. "How long have you been here?" "I don't know." Rizal stood up, looked at the grey sky, then at the boy, then at Tala's name carved in the stone. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something inside him begin to crack. The pain was old, but the silence perhaps was even greater. Tala had a secret, and it was right there in front of him, with its face pressed against the stone and a photograph clutched to its chest. The inside of the car was submerged in an uncomfortable silence. Rizal drove with his hands firm on the wheel, but his gaze kept flicking to the rearview mirror, where Lito's reflection seemed out of place. A boy, too small, too quiet, sitting in the back seat of a car that seemed too big for both of them. The heating was on, but Lito still shivered. It wasn't just the cold. It was something Rizal knew well, the kind of trembling that can't be fixed with blankets, the kind born from abandonment. During the journey, the boy asked no questions, just kept his eyes fixed on the window, as if expecting to wake up from a confusing dream. Rizal, on the other hand, kept his mind racing. Every time he looked at the photograph still clutched in the boy's hands, he felt his stomach turn. Tala was smiling there with a real smile. Not the smile she offered in photos at gala events. It was the kind of expression she wore when she was at peace. And she was with this boy. He couldn't accept it without answers. "How did you get to the cemetery?" he asked, breaking the silence. Lito took a few seconds to answer. "I walked." "From where?" "From the orphanage." Rizal frowned. "And how did you know where she—" He paused the sentence, adjusting his tone. "Where she was buried." The boy hugged his knees, curled up in the back seat. "One day I followed her. I saw when she went in there." "You followed Tala?" "Yes. She would visit me at the home, bring me sweets, stories, but she never let me go with her." Rizal felt his chest tighten. The image of Tala walking alone to that cemetery, without him knowing anything, hit him like a stab wound. Did she have a parallel life, secrets, or did he just never want to see? He parked the car in front of the nearest hotel. He didn't want to take him home. Not yet. None of this made sense. Lito hesitated getting out of the car. When Rizal motioned to take the photograph, the boy held on tight. "Are you going to take it from me?" "No," he answered, exhausted. "You can keep it." In the room, Rizal watched the boy curl up in an armchair, as if he were used to not taking up space. It was strange. He didn't ask for food, didn't ask where he was. He didn't say if he wanted to sleep or not, he just existed in silence. This silence was beginning to bother him more than any words. Rizal looked at him for a few seconds, then stood up. "Tomorrow I'm going to the orphanage. I want to know exactly who you are and what Tala was doing there." The next morning, the sun had barely broken through the sky when Rizal parked in front of the rusty gate of the San Benito home. The building was simple, with peeling brick walls and a poorly kept garden in front. It wasn't the kind of place Tala would frequent, or at least not the kind of place he thought she would. Lito walked beside him, head down, clutching the photograph with both hands. He didn't seem uncomfortable to be back, but resigned, as if he already expected to be returned. A nun with a gentle expression welcomed them at the entrance. "Lito, thank God," she murmured, kneeling to hold him by the shoulders. "Where have you been, my dear?" The boy didn't answer, just looked at Rizal, as if he were the one who should speak. "I'm Alejandro Ferrer," I want to speak to the person in charge." "Sister Clara," the nun said, leading them down a narrow corridor to a small room with old furniture and a smell of damp paper. The woman waiting for them behind the desk had grey hair pulled back in a tight bun and tired but attentive eyes. "Mr. Ferrer," she said without smiling, "I imagined you would show up sooner or later." Rizal narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean by that?" Sister Clara sighed like someone carrying an old burden. "Your wife. She used to come here often." The sentence fell like a bomb in the center of his chest. "To do what?" "She helped. Read to the children, donated toys, but above all, she spent time with Lito." Rizal was silent for a few seconds, swallowed hard. Why with him? The sister hesitated. "Because she wanted to adopt him." Rizal felt the chair sink beneath him. The air escaped his lungs as if he'd been punched. No, that can't be true. She never told me anything." "Perhaps she tried," the sister said with regret. "Perhaps you weren't listening." The silence filled the room like smoke. Tala had left something unfinished, something big, something she wanted to do even without him. And now he had that something in front of him, breathing, waiting, looking like someone who had been returned before. If you're enjoying these stories, subscribe to the channel. There's still a lot of truth to come to light, and you'll want to be here when it all explodes. Rizal drove slowly, as if prolonging the journey could delay the storm brewing inside him. The boy beside him in the passenger seat seemed even smaller in the late afternoon light. He held the photograph of Tala with both arms, as if the paper were the only place he could rest. No one said anything, but the silence between them was not light. It was thick, dense, full of everything that still had no name. Rizal tried to maintain control, but nothing was under control anymore. Tala wanted to adopt a boy and never told him. He tried to deny it, to deny she had this plan, to deny it was true. But now he had proof, documents, witnesses, and the look in that boy's eyes was impossible to ignore. When they got home, Lito hesitated to enter. He stood at the door, looking inside, like someone observing a sacred place where he shouldn't be. "You can come in," Rizal said, trying to sound neutral. The boy entered slowly, his dirty feet treading carefully on the white marble of the entrance. Rizal led him to one of the guest rooms, spacious, silent, decorated like a magazine showcase, but completely cold. "This will be your room. The bed is big, the bathroom is there. If you need anything." He fell silent. He didn't know how to finish the sentence. Lito nodded his head and went to sit on the edge of the bed. His shoulders hunched, his gaze lowered. He held the photograph of Tala with both hands, as if he were afraid of losing it again. That night, Rizal didn't sleep. He sat in his office in front of the unlit fireplace, with an untouched glass of whiskey and the folder of documents on his lap. Inside, besides the adoption papers, were handwritten letters from Tala. "Alejandro, I tried to tell you so many times, but you were always far away, even when you were here. I needed to do something for someone, something to make me feel alive again." He read it in silence, but the words wouldn't quiet in his mind. They echoed, they hurt. Lito's face came to his memory like a ghost he still couldn't embrace. Guilt mixed with doubt and doubt with fear. The next morning, he found the boy sitting at the kitchen table, in silence, looking at the plate in front of him, without touching it. "You don't like it?" "I like it," he answered quietly. "I just don't know if I can eat it." That hit Rizal like a punch. He sat down in front of him, watching the way the boy held the fork with hesitation, as if it were a strange weapon. "You can eat. You're here now?" Lito nodded, but the gesture brought no relief. It was just acceptance. And that bothered Rizal. The boy didn't ask for anything, didn't complain, didn't make demands. He seemed always to be waiting to be returned. In the afternoon, they went to a clothing store. Lito chose what he was told to pick. No opinion, no reaction. In the checkout line, Rizal saw a smiling family next to them, father, mother, 2 small children running between the hangars. He looked back at Lito. The boy was standing still, hands behind his back, eyes on the floor. It was as if he didn't believe this was for him. On the way back, Rizal received a call from his lawyer. Mr. Ferrer, there's a family interested in Lito, the Mendozas, high-standard people, emotional stability, resources, which means they can adopt him immediately. We can formalize the transfer as soon as you authorize it." Rizal hung up without answering. The rest of the journey was in silence. When they arrived, Lito asked nothing, but something in his eyes had changed. Less surrender, more distance, more fear. That night, while washing his hands in the bathroom, Rizal saw his own reflection and was startled, not by his face but by the question that formed inside him. What if I'm not capable? What if he's better off away from me? What if I've already failed before I even tried? Hours later, leaving his office, he found Lito sitting on the floor in the hallway, silent, alone. The boy looked up but said nothing. "What are you doing there?" "Nothing. It's late, go to sleep." The boy stood up but didn't move. He just stared at Rizal for a few seconds. "Why did you bring me here if you're just going to send me away?" The question fell like a knife. "Is that it? They're coming to get me, aren't they?" Rizal clenched his jaw. "They have money, right?" "A nice house," but the boy hesitated. "I just wanted to stay here." Rizal took a deep breath but said nothing. And what hurt the most was not knowing what to say. What would you do in his place? Would you let Lito go with another family, or try to be what you never were? Rizal spent the day locked in his office, pretending to work. In reality, he did nothing but stare at the folder on his desk. The same folder, the same documents, adoption, letters, photos, proof that Tala had a plan, a purpose, and he wasn't part of it. Since the lawyer's call, everything had gotten worse. The Mendozas wanted Lito, a stable, wealthy, structured family. It was the perfect solution. So why did he feel so miserable? He stood up, crossed the hall and stopped in front of Lito's bedroom door. He took a deep breath before knocking. Nothing. He opened it slowly. The boy was sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, his knees bent and his head down. When Rizal entered, he didn't move. "Why are you on the floor?" "I didn't want to lie on the bed," Lito answered, without looking up. "It's too big." Rizal swallowed hard, sat on the edge of the bed. The silence between them was thick. "I need to talk to you." Lito just nodded. "The Mendozas want to adopt you." The boy didn't react, just squeezed his knees tighter. "They have everything you need. They're good people. They'll take good care of you." "I understand." Rizal expected questions, protests, tears, but Lito just accepted, and that destroyed him. "Is that all you have to say?" Lito looked up. "Do I have a choice?" Rizal felt his blood boil, not because of the question, but because of everything it carried. You don't speak, you don't ask, you don't react. You just accept everything, as if it's normal for someone to disappear from your life. "It's just that it's happened before," the boy said in a low voice. Rizal jumped up, walked to the window, ran his hands over his face. He was on the verge of an emotional abyss, and he knew it. "Why do you want to stay here, Lito?" "Because this is where she is." Rizal turned slowly. "Who?" "Tala, Mom." The word fell into the room like thunder. Rizal approached with slow steps. "Don't call her that." "But she was my mother," the boy murmured. "No, she was my wife, and you? You're nothing to me." Lito blinked once, twice. His eyes darkened like the sky before a storm. "Then why did you bring me here?" Rizal hesitated, but anger or fear had already won. "Because I felt obligated, because she wanted this. But the truth is," he stopped. He knew he shouldn't, but he said it anyway. "You are not my son." Silence. Dense, cutting, irreversible. Lito didn't cry, didn't scream. He just stood up slowly, as if every movement hurt. "Okay," and left the room. Rizal stood there, his chest collapsing, his heart broken, not by what he heard, but by what he said and by what he could never undo. Minutes later, he looked for him around the house. He wanted to explain, to correct, to apologize, but the room was empty, the garden dark. He opened the front door, and his heart stopped. On the sidewalk in the middle of the night, walking with small steps, was Lito with a backpack on. "Lito!" The boy stopped, looked back. "Where do you think you're going?" "If I leave now, it will hurt less when you decide to send me away for good." Rizal felt the ground disappear from under him. He ran to him, knelt on the cold sidewalk, held the small shoulders tightly. "Look at me. Leto turned his face away. "Look at me." The boy gave in, his eyes full of restrained tears. "I'm not going to leave you," Rizal said, his voice breaking. "You already did," Leto replied. "Back there when you said I wasn't your son." Rizal felt the air tear through his lungs. "I was wrong. I'm scared. I don't know how to be a father. But one thing I know, Leto." "What?" "You are my son. And that doesn't depend on paper or blood. It depends on me not leaving you alone." The boy trembled, then fell into his arms and cried for the first time, quietly, hard, for real. And Rizal hugged him like he had never hugged anyone. There on that sidewalk, under the yellow light of an old lamppost, he understood. It wasn't about Tala, it was about him, about what he could still become. If this moment gave you chills, as much as it did me, leave a like now. It shows us that you're feeling this story along with us. The dawn had passed slowly, as if time were afraid to touch the two of them. Rizal and Leto slept on the living room sofa, intertwined in a strange way, like two bodies that don't quite know how to fit together but refuse to let go. The boy rested with his face hidden under Rizal's coat, and for the first time in years, Rizal didn't feel like running away. Outside, the sky was clearing with difficulty. The grey morning light seeped through the gaps in the curtains, revealing a house that seemed different, not in its furniture, but in its atmosphere. There was a lighter silence there, not of absence, but of presence, a silence of two survivors. Rizal woke to the muffled sound of Leto's breathing on his chest. He was sleepy, with sore muscles and his face marked by the fabric of his suit, but he didn't move. He just looked up, his gaze lost on the ceiling. He was no longer the same man who had walked through the cemetery gates days before. Something inside him had cracked. And now, through the cracks, a confused desire to stay, to care, to remain was growing. He didn't know how to be a father. He still didn't know if he was capable, but he knew he didn't want to let him go. Carefully, he ran his hand through Leto's hair. The boy stirred but didn't wake up. He seemed peaceful for the first time. Later, when Leto opened his eyes, it took him a few seconds to get his bearings. He looked around, startled, until he found Rizal beside him, watching him in silence. "Am I still here?" he asked, as if it were improbable. Rizal nodded. "Where else would you go?" The boy didn't answer, but a different expression crossed his face. Small, almost imperceptible, like someone who is slowly beginning to believe. In the kitchen, Leto sat at the table while Rizal prepared breakfast. He wasn't good at it. He'd burned the toast and forgotten to sweeten the juice. But Leto ate in silence without complaining. And Rizal noticed that for the first time, the boy picked up the glass on his own. Small gestures, small changes. After breakfast, Rizal went up to his office. He stopped in front of the bookshelf, where he kept everything that was left of Tala, books, photos, an old wooden box. He opened the box carefully. Inside, yellowed letters, a scarf with a faded scent, and a small pen drive with her name written on it by hand. He sat down, connected the device to the computer. There was only one file, a video. When Tala's image appeared on the screen, Rizal froze. She was smiling with her hair down and the evening light behind her. She looked alive, real, so close it hurt. "Rizal, if you're seeing this, it's because you've already met Leto." Her voice filled the room like an old memory that no longer wants to be silenced. "Maybe you're angry, maybe you're confused, but please, listen to me. I tried to tell you so many times, but you were always far away. Not physically, but too far to hear. And I kept quiet." Rizal lowered his gaze. Her words were knives, but they were also bridges. "Leto has no one, and you've always had so much love stored up, even without knowing it. He needs someone, and I trust that you can be that someone, even if it takes time, even if it hurts." The screen went dark. Rizal sat there in silence, his hands on his lap, his eyes moist. Tala had left more than letters. She left a request, a last wish, and now everything depended on him. Late that afternoon, Leto was sitting on the living room floor, drawing with some colored pencils that Rizal had bought without knowing if it was too soon. He drew slowly in silence, concentrated. Rizal approached, sat down beside him. "What are you doing?" Leto showed him the paper. There were 3 figures: a woman with long hair, a small boy, and a tall man with open arms. "Who are they?" Rizal asked. Leto pointed. "This is Mom, this is me. And this one?" He hesitated. "I don't know if I can say yet." Rizal swallowed hard. "You can." The boy looked at him for a second and smiled. "Is it you?" It was a small, rare smile, but Rizal felt that gesture was worth more than any words. There on that sheet of paper, he was no longer a stranger. If this part truly touched you, you can support our channel with a super thanks. It makes all the difference. Or if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. We are in this journey together. The sound of the cutlery was soft, almost shy. Leto chewed slowly, his feet dangling under the chair. Rizal watched him from the other side of the table, the newspaper open in front of him, but his eyes were fixed on something else. On that scene, in that moment, something simple, mundane, everyday, but that inside tasted like a miracle. That house, once as silent as a tomb, now breathed differently. There was still silence, yes, but no longer that of absence. It was the silence of respect, of care, of knowing that you don't need to fill the whole space to be together. Leto now left his toys scattered in the living room, slept with the door ajar, and occasionally laughed quietly at things he saw on TV. Rizal no longer knew the exact moment when all this had become routine, but he knew he could no longer imagine himself alone, not like before. The next morning they left early. Leto was wearing new sneakers, a jacket zipped up to his chin, and the drawing he had made with the 3 figures, him, Tala, and Rizal, folded in his pocket. The registry office was not a beautiful place. Pale walls, the smell of old paper, hard benches. But there, between signatures, records, and notarizations, something profound was happening, the transformation of an invisible bond into something concrete. When Rizal signed the last paper, he felt his hand tremble, looked at the boy beside him, and saw in his eyes a mixture of fear and hope, like someone who wants to believe but has been disappointed too many times to do so easily. Leto asked nothing, just held Rizal's arm tightly, and that said everything. At night, back home, Rizal went to the boys' room. Leto was drawing again, 3 figures, now with a 4th. "Who is this?" "It's a dog. We don't have one yet, but I thought he could join the family." Rizal smiled. It was the most awkward smile he had ever given, but it was sincere. "We can talk about that." Leto laughed quietly, as if he were learning to laugh for the first time. Sometimes life doesn't restart with fireworks. There's no applause or background music. Just a small gesture, a returned gaze, a cup of coffee shared in silence. And when you realize it, you're no longer alone. Rizal still misses Tala. She is still present in the portraits on the bookshelf, in the notebook stored in the drawer, in the lavender scent that still insists on appearing on the sheets. But now she is also in Leto's eyes, in the way he hugs with more confidence, in the way he whispers goodnight with a still hesitant voice, in the way he calls him Dad when he forgets that he was once afraid to say it. Tala didn't just leave behind longing, she left a bridge, and Rizal, without realizing it, crossed it. Now I speak to you who have stayed until the end. Maybe you too have felt that you lost everything, or that you were failing at something you didn't even know how to start. Maybe you felt like Rizal, that it was too late to change, or like Leto, that no one would stick around long enough to choose you. But sometimes all someone needs is a place where they can simply stay. You won't always know what to say. You won't always feel strong, but being present is already a start. And if this has touched you in any way, then this story is also yours. If this part truly touched you, you can support our channel with a super thanks. It makes all the difference. Or if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time to join us. Your presence here turns this story into something alive. Thank you for watching until the end. Stories like this aren't easy to tell, but they are important. And if you want to continue on this journey with us, there's a next video waiting for you right here. You are not alone, and you never were.